to join us this afternoon. And before we get started, we would like to begin with a brief message from Gilbert Martinez from our communications staff for our Spanish-speaking viewers. So, Gilbert.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la sesión informativa. Esta sesión informativa se está transmitiendo en vivo por nuestro canal de YouTube con interpretación al español. Para escuchar la versión en español, puede usar el link de YouTube que se encuentra en la página de Facebook del Condado de Sonoma. Gracias. Y ahora regresamos para atrás con su supervisora, Susan Gorin.
Gracias, Gilbert. I am Susan Gorin. I'm the First District Supervisor for Sonoma County. And this webinar is so important, especially for the districts, the residents of the First District. As you know, we've weathered several mega fires and we think we're prepared, but maybe we're not. Maybe we need to keep prepared for what lies ahead. So thank you for joining us. And so we're going to talk about two very different resources available by calling 211 and 911. Last month, we all came together to recognize the rebuilding efforts, and I might say many of us are still rebuilding, and to honor our resilient community on the 5th anniversary of the devastating 2017 wildfires. This commemoration also stood as a reminder that we need to remain vigilant and prepared as fire season becomes a year-round threat. And if we needed any better lesson, let's review what's happened in Boulder last December in the middle of winter. And we also experienced an earthquake in September, and recent rains remind us that flooding is a threat to our region. Today, we'll focus on information and resources that are available during an emergency and during non-emergencies. In particular, we'll be focusing on when to call 911 for true emergency situations and when to use 211, a nationwide resource linking people with needs such as housing, healthcare, transportation. In Sonoma County, we also utilize 211 during emergencies for information on emergency shelters, food resources, and evacuation zones. I am happy to be joined today by Yesenia Gaitan, 211 Director of the United Way of the Wine Country, who will share information on all of the resources 211 provides in Sonoma County during an emergency and non-emergency situations. We'll also hear from Alma Bowen, Executive Director of Nuestra Comunidad, and a former emergency dispatcher who was on duty during the night of the 2017 Tubbs fires. But first, let's turn to Sergeant Juan Valencia of the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department, who will provide information on what 911 is, when to use it, and how improper use can delay critical dispatch needs. Thank you, Sergeant Valencia, for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you and welcome to this training. This is a good opportunity for the Sheriff's Office and for the county in a whole to help our community understand the difference between 211 and 911 and when it's appropriate to call either number. That way we could get you the resources or the assistance that you need as soon as possible. And that way you're not bouncing back and forth trying to reach a person or something that you need either as an emergency or from the county. I'm going to share my screen. If I may, that's not happening. Is my screen up?
It is.
Okay. There we go. All right. So first off, the Sheriff's Office, that we know, is in charge of unincorporated Sonoma County. We provide law enforcement services. We have two contract cities, the city of Sonoma and the town of Windsor. So any call that's comes into our dispatch. So for example, The last year we had 179,000 calls, almost 180,000 calls received by our dispatch center. Of those, a little over 30,000 calls were actually 911 calls that people were reporting an emergency. Those calls are answered within 10 seconds. And we take each call seriously when they call 911. Non-emergency numbers. Non-emergency numbers. So for example, I'll give some examples of when to call the sheriff's office. The non-emergency number, it's 707-565-2121. And then the Redcom Fire and Medical is 707-576-1365. When to call 911. This is a call that we actually get a lot. We get a lot of calls and we provide a lot of information. Is when someone's life is in danger. What do I mean by danger? If they're victim of a crime, they're witnessing something, some sort of crime occurring, somebody is being shot, somebody's being chased. That's a dangerous call. That's when you should call 911. Obviously, we all know now as a fire, if there's a fire, that's an emergency. We recommend you call 911. And then usually if it ends up being a fire call or some sort of medical call, our dispatch center sends it over to Redcom and then they take it over from there. So we have a good system in place, and it's vice versa as well. It's safe to say if a crime is happening, if you're not sure and a crime is happening, call 911. I would rather have you call 911 than not call at all or get frustrated with trying to find the non-emergency number to call. The other non-emergency numbers, that 565-2121, these are prime examples of when to call that non-emergency number. A suspicious person, firework complaints. Unless there's a fire, then 911. But if it's somebody setting off fireworks, we recommend calling the 911 or the 565 number. Noise disturbance. We get a lot of those during the summer, or holidays are coming, holiday parties. That's not an emergency. Those are calls that could be called on our non-emergency number, and we get deputies out there as soon as we can. If you want to report a crime where there's no exigency, there's no immediate threat to life, then the non-emergency number. Or if you want to talk to a deputy regarding a neighborhood complaint, speeding cars, that's a good time to do that. We also want people to follow our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We work closely with the Department of Department of Emergency Management. So anytime that we do have a large fire in our county, we work side by side with making sure that we sent the same exact message out. That way there's no confusion. We work closely on getting the resources out there together, but there is a time delay. So that's why I always tell people to follow us on social media. We put that information out as quickly as possible. We know there's a time delay sometimes with updating websites, but we get all our information from either we have deputies out at the scene with fire, working closely with fire. We put videos out, information out, warning the people. People want to know what's going on. So that's how we use those tools that we have. CAL FIRE and SoCo Emergency. SoCo Emergency is one of those websites you go to and register for alerts. You get to know your zone. There's a lot of other information in there that would help you get ready for an emergency, flood, earthquake, or fire. Basically have a go bag. Be aware, practice drills with your family, taking pets, stuff like that. You have to be ready. You have to practice it, play it in your head. So when that emergency does come, you're not in panic mode and you forget to do something. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Sergeant Valencia. I really appreciate that, the information that you presented. SoCo Emergency. When there's not an emergency, go on there to actually see what's on there and how to register for Nixle and SoCo alerts. And Sergeant Valencia, give us that non-emergency phone number one more time.
It's 565-2121. The other thing I forgot to mention is if you do have an emergency and you're on a cell phone, the sheriff's office has the option of texting. So what you do is you open up a new text and you text 911 and then you put your information in there that what you need. It's gonna come up on their screen like a call. And then what they're gonna do is they're gonna ask you if you're able to call in, call in. If you're not, let us know. And then we want the person, for example, if they're being held hostage, to put in there, hey, I'm being held hostage. Even if you don't know the location, with cell phone triangulation, cell phone data, we're able to get an idea of where that person is based on cell phone tower pings and stuff like that. So we have the technology to kind of pinpoint where you're at. And if you do need assistance, then we could send it.
It's amazing to me how many people have cell phones now. Not everybody, but most of our population. Please enter these numbers into your cells now so that you have them during an emergency. Thank you, Sergeant Valencia. Appreciate that information. Now I'd like to pass it over to our 211 Director, Yesenia Gaitan. Yesenia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yesenia Gaitan. I am the Director of 211 Sonoma County, as well as Mendocino County. And I'm here to give you some information about 211 and what we provide during disasters, as well as on a day-to-day basis. So I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what is 211? So 211 is an information and referral line that helps connect our community with information about social and human services that are available to them. We provide comprehensive information, referrals, and direct assistance 24/7, 365 days a year. This is a free service, and you can reach us by dialing 211 or texting in your zip code to 898-211 or visiting our website 211sonoma.org. If you do call into our line or text in, you will reach a live representative, and 50% of our call specialists are Spanish speakers. So if you are a Spanish speaker, you should be able to speak with someone in your language. We also have interpretation lines that provide up to 150 other languages to help assist you. I do want to get into details on the type of resources that we provide on a day-to-day basis. So for example, say you're someone that just lost your job and you're looking for extra support, and your main thing that you're worried about is providing for your family and getting food on the table. You would call 211 and say, hey, I'm looking for food resources. What's available to me? Well, the first thing a call specialist would do is ask you if you receive food stamps or CalFresh. And if you don't, we will assist you over the phone with completing an application. And while you wait for your EBT card to come in the mail, we'll provide you with food resources, let you know what food banks are available to you, nearest you, and are available during those hours where you're not working or where you're most available. Same thing for seniors. We get a lot of seniors who lack transportation and are also in need of food. We would be able to find food pantries that provide food delivery, as well as transportation services to get you to where you need to go, like, for example, medical appointments. During our tax season, which can start as early as January or early February, you can call in so that you can get an appointment made with our United Way program called Earn It, Keep It, Save It, which is a tax preparation service that will help you do your taxes for free. We also provide programs that are more direct, like our care coordination programs. One is our informal caregiver support program. This is for our families that are taking care of perhaps their elderly parents or a loved one that's sick, and they just need extra support to make sure that they're helping their loved one as best as they can and also supporting themselves. Through this program, you would get one-to-one support. They would direct you to those services that are most appropriate for you and best meet your needs. Not only that, we also have a PSPS care coordination program, which is our public safety power shutoff events that PG&E has to prevent wildfires from starting when it's really windy out. And so they'll decide to turn off the power. But as we all know, there are populations that rely on electricity for their survival. Those are those that are on oxygen tanks or have electric chairs or need refrigeration for their insulin. These are folks that cannot have their power shut off at all. So this program, what it does is it's talks directly one-on-one with these folks, creates a safety plan for them, directs them to programs so that they are well prepared and equipped for emergencies, like providing portable batteries and much, much more. There's so much that we could help you with. So if you're ever in need of support and just don't know where to start, 211 is that place to go. And speaking of being ready for disasters and having safety plans, I do also obviously want to note that 211 plays a very important role in providing official incident-specific information during times of disaster. This information does come directly from our Office of Emergency Management. And I do want to note that during emergencies, in order to provide accurate information, there is a process to activate and mobilize staff to get that information. So sometimes you might call in and we might not have the most, we might not have information on closures or where exactly a fire is located. And that might be because that information just isn't available yet. But you can have peace of mind when you call 211 that you're getting the information that is most accurate and not information that we're gathering from someone who found information on Facebook or on Twitter. And in the meantime, we'll still make sure that you're provided the information on where your evacuation zone is. If there are zones already in place that are under mandatory evacuation, or perhaps under advisory. If you're not signed up for alerts and want to find out how to do that, we can help you do that over the phone or send you text messages with how to do that yourself. During emergencies, generally there are evacuation resource centers that become available. We would tell you how to get to those. If you need transportation or are struggling to get there, we can help you with that as well. And at those locations, that's generally where you can find food pantries, food or other resources that become available during emergencies. Another thing to note is that our access and functional need populations who need extra support during this time can call into 211 and let us know, for example, if they're homebound and don't really have a way to evacuate. That's information that 211 can relay to the appropriate officials, appropriate partners to make sure that those individuals are being assisted. I do want to give a little side story as well. In 2020, I was a call specialist taking calls during the glass fire. And, a lot of the folks were just worried and wanted to know where they can get information. And we were just there to make sure, give them that ease of mind, let them know that there are resources available and where they could go. And we're able to take that information and share that with our officials so that everyone is aware of our community's most important needs. I always remember that one of my callers ended up being someone from the sheriff department, Misty Wood. She actually called in and she just wanted to know how things were going. She wanted to know if there was any information that she needed to know about or anyone that needed her assistance. And it was just great to know that officials throughout the county. We're watching out for one another, looking out for the community, and we're all trying our best to assist our community. And, you know, I just want to reiterate that 211 is all about community. The community is our priority in making sure that they are safe and well informed during this time is what we're here for. So again, if you are ever in need of information or resources, make the right call and dial 211. Thank you. Again, my name is Yesenia.
Yesenia, thank you so much for this great information. We appreciate the overview of the available resources that 211 offers. Lastly, I'd like to go to our final presenter, Nuestra Comunidad Executive Director, Alma Bowen. As we mentioned earlier, Alma Bowen has extensive experience with both 211 and 911, as she was an emergency dispatcher during the October 2017 fires. Alma, thank you for being that voice at the dispatch center, so reassuring and responding to frantic calls, I'm sure. And thank you especially for doing what you're doing now. So give us some information.
Thank you, Supervisor Gorin. It's a pleasure to be here. This webinar is addressing something that's very dear and near to my heart, both as a dispatcher prior to starting NC of over 18 years, and now as an executive director of a nonprofit that works very closely hand in hand with many organizations and local community members, community groups, to become better prepared for disasters. And also 911 awareness is a huge program for us. During the Tubbs fire, what I experienced as a 911 dispatcher is hard to capture in one word or even a coherent sentence. When people use the word chaos, it almost seems like it's not quite enough to describe what it's like to be in a dispatch center, an emergency services dispatch center, when a disaster of that magnitude hits. It is something altogether different. And so during the Tubbs fire, as a 911 dispatcher here in Sonoma County, I was on the Redcom side. I was a Redcom employee, and so we did fire and medical dispatch. And so we started getting calls and became extremely inundated. We're talking one call after the next. So as a 911 dispatcher, you wear this headset, and literally the moment one call gets hung up and the next call's in your ear, you're not at, even answering lines. They're just going into your ear one after the next. And so that night, we were getting calls on both ends of the spectrum, everything from people literally calling and saying, I think I smell smoke. Is something going on? To people saying, oh my God, I'm completely surrounded in fire. What do I do? And so as 911 dispatchers, until we answer a line, we don't know what is going to be on the other end of that line. And so that night, a huge percentage of the calls coming into us were people that needed resources and information, such as the ones that Yesenia spoke about that 211 provided. But at that time, there wasn't a lot of awareness to call the 211 instead. Everybody was defaulting to calling 911. So everything from looking for evacuation centers, evacuation routes, has my area been evacuated? How do I find loved ones? Where can I'm not getting alerts. How do I make sure I'm subscribed? All the things that Yesenia talked about that 211 would be able to help, they were calling 911. As a 911 dispatch center, we did not have readily available a lot of the disaster specific information, because as a 911 dispatch center, that is not what we did. And so in that moment, when people were calling with inquiries about evacuation zones, evacuation centers, things like that, we didn't have that information at hand. So not only are we answering calls that were not urgent calls, but then we have people on the line that we couldn't provide the appropriate information for as well. And in the meantime, there are people holding on the line, waiting for their call to be answered, that were in critical, life-threatening situations. And so as a dispatcher, again, there's no way to look at a line that's ringing and know what's happening. So we had hundreds and hundreds of calls coming in hourly, and our call banks were completely lit up, means every single line had a caller waiting for us to answer. And so I think efforts like this to really put out the information into the community as to when it's appropriate to call 911. If your life, property, or there's a crime in progress in that moment, you call 911. If you need information, resources, or you need to get connected to something locally, then you call 211. So making those very simple, linear, I think, distinctions for community members as guidelines, it's important and critical to keep the 911 system as open as possible during a disaster for those that are being directly impacted by a disaster. And what we always said as dispatchers, when in doubt, call 911. If you're not quite sure, if you're in a situation, whether it's every day or during a disaster, and you're not sure, do I call 211 or do I call 911? Go ahead and call 911 if there's any chance that what you need is immediate assistance in that moment. Don't take the chance, call 911. But if it's just something where you need to get connected, then call 211 and they'll be able to guide you as well. So as a dispatcher, even during non-disaster time, I also know that we would receive a number of calls that, again, now we are learning are way more appropriate for 211. People that were looking for local doctors or dentists that didn't have their own doctor or dentist that they went to, but maybe they were having a toothache or something like that. It wasn't a life-threatening situation, but they didn't know where else to call. So they would call 911 and we would respond. We would respond every call we have to, by law, 911 has to respond to every call that's made. And so having the awareness to call a non-urgent line to get hooked up with the appropriate, if what you need is a doctor or a clinic that you can go to, if you need a dentist, all those things, they'll be able to connect you to those services. After the Tubbs fire, and then in the ongoing fires, we realized that that was an ongoing issue where community was still defaulting to calling 911 in that moment, even if it was just information that they were trying to gather. One of the really important things to remember about both services is that no matter what your language is that you're most comfortable speaking or getting information in, 211 and 911 both provide interpreting services in over 150 languages, and it happens very quickly. So if you're having an emergency, but you're afraid that maybe on the other end of the line, you may get a person that can't speak your language, don't let that deter you. 911 has access to an interpreting service where if you call, you just identify the language you need and you will get an interpreter on the line very quickly. And then you will receive help in the language of your choice that you feel most comfortable with. And that is the same with 211. So don't let language access become a barrier to receiving information and resources or emergency services during a disaster. That's something that oftentimes I heard that people were afraid to call because they didn't think they would be able to reach somebody that could speak with them. And in both of these services, they're available in whatever language you may need. So I think that's a really important point. And during disasters, you're panicking already. So anything that you can do beforehand to prepare, SoCo Alert, SoCo Emergency, it's a wonderful website. As Supervisor Gorin said, don't wait till you need it to go there, go in advance and look at everything they have. They have information on what to do to get ready, how to sign up for alerts, all kinds of really useful information. So take those steps. Take them now during what we call blue sky days when we're not actively in a disaster. Take the steps. Always have a list of, for everybody in your household, you should have a list of their medical conditions and any medications that they take. And this is useful whether you're just dialing 911 for an emergency or it's a disaster. When first responders arrive on scene of a call, they're going to ask, what medication does this patient take? And if you can hand them a sheet with that patient's name, their medical conditions and their medications, that's going to help them get that patient on the gurney and out the door and on the way to help a lot more quickly than if you're searching around trying to find what they take and what milligrams and all those things. During transport, oftentimes patients will receive medication, and those responders need to know that whatever they're giving them is not going to have a bad reaction with medications they already take. So that can be very critical. A couple of other things that you can do: make sure that your address is legible, put a reflective numbering so that when responders have to respond to your home, if it's at night, they can easily see your address so that right when they drive up, they can see you. If it's at night, it may take them a minute longer if they can't see your address. Make sure nothing's blocking those numbers. If you've called 911 and you have pets, go ahead and secure them. They get super excited. Pets can read our stress levels. And when responders get there, again, that could be a little bit of an obstacle. If they have a dog and that dog might seem aggressive, if you secure the dog beforehand, they can come right in and help the patient. Where if they have to come in and first secure the dog and do all that, it may delay a little bit of patient care getting to them more quickly. So there are things that we can do in advance to help, whether it's a disaster or an emergency. So again, I'm really excited about being here because this information is critical to keeping our 911 system functioning in moments that are most critical. And it also helps connect our community to resources through 211 that they may need. Thank you.
Alma, thank you so much. I think we all can tell that you are passionate about this topic. We can wind you up and let you go for another day and a half. And
You can. I'm trying to be good. I'm like, okay, that's the most critical step. I'll stop.
So thank you so much. Talking about that firsthand experience of what it's like to be a person answering the calls and how you can help that person who answers your call during an emergency. And I know the Tubbs fire was such a devastating fire, but there were a number of other fires that roiled our community for the next week and a half. And always our dispatchers were there to help out when you needed them the most. On that note, we'd like to remind people that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the county's Facebook page and on YouTube in both English and Spanish so that you can share it with others. We'd now like to hear from you. To take questions from you and to help with that, we turn to the county's Supervising Communications Specialist, Carly Cabrera. Carly, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Supervisor Gorin, and kudos to you, to the board and the Board of Supervisors for really being champions of 211 in our county. I think it's made a measurable difference in how our community receives timely and accurate information, especially during emergencies. I would imagine your office has also seen the benefits of getting that critical information out to constituents quickly and early and accurately. So thank you again for your advocacy work on this great resource for our community members. So now for the Q&A portion, we want to remind everyone that if you have joined this webinar by Zoom, please pose your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you are live on Facebook or YouTube with us, please leave your questions in the comments area and one of our staff members will pass it along to me to share with one of the panelists. If you are on neither, which I'm not sure is possible, but it could, please email us at publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. So let's get started. We have a few questions that have come in already, and Sergeant Valencia, I wanted to start with you. A question about utilizing the line 988. Now, this is a nationwide line for suicide and crisis intervention. When should somebody maybe call 988 versus 911? And what's your best advice for, folks maybe either dealing with a crisis of their own or with a loved one?
Absolutely. Thanks, Carlin. That's a very good question because we do get a lot of calls regarding when somebody's suicidal. And it could be we're either calling on behalf of a loved one or a friend, a neighbor. So the big difference between obviously 911 and the I'm drawing a blank on the number. It's the 988
Yep.
number line. There's two differences. The 988 number, or for example, the best time to call is if you need somebody to talk to. If you're having maybe some ideas of either hurting yourself, you're having a difficult time, in a relationship, and you're not sure how to handle that, and you're kind of having some ideas that you might want to hurt yourself. I recommend calling that. If your loved one either has attempted to commit suicide, for example, has taken pills, or is holding a weapon where they're cutting themselves, that's an emergency. That's where you need law enforcement to respond. A person wanting to commit suicide is not a crime. So we want people to know that they're not criminals. If they're calling for help, we're going to get them the help. We're going to get them the resources that they need. With the county, we have the MST mobile support team. They're mental health evaluators. They're really good at what they do. So what we do is we go there, we secure the scene, make sure it's safe for them to come in. They come in and talk to them. They build rapport and they get them the resources and, and information that they either need or that a family member or friend needs. So if it's an immediate threat where they're hurting themselves, then 911. But if it's something where they need some resources, maybe of who can I call to get some resources for some mental health information, get some counseling, then I recommend calling that number.
And can I just add, the county is really concerned about the mental health of those living in our community. We have experienced wildfires, 5 of them actually, power shutdowns, COVID for the last 2.5 years. Actually, we're still experiencing COVID, isolation, social isolation, distance learning. And we know that our community is really suffering and reeling. And we are especially focused on suicide prevention. So please, please call 988 if you or a family member is experiencing crisis.
Great, thank you both for those good reminders and encouragement that folks are never alone. There is help. So there's resources we can guide you to. My next question I want to ask of Yesenia with 211. The question is, does every county provide resource assistance in times of an emergency through 211?
That is a great question. So a large majority of our 211s come from a call center that is in Ventura County, which means we all kind of have the same procedure for responding to disasters. So yes, the answer is yes, you can call any 211 in whatever region you're in, and you will get that county's 211 who will be able to provide you information on what's happening in that county. I will say some 211s don't have as strong as a relationship with their Office of Emergency Management the way we do here in Sonoma County. So their information might not be available as quickly as ours, or they might not have as many of the resources as we do here, but each 211 in every county is doing a huge effort to make sure that they have all the resources that become available during an emergency.
Great, thank you, Yesenia. That's good information to have. For my next question, I want to go back to Alma. Alma spoke a little bit about this in her experience as a 911 dispatcher, and I think it's really good information to repeat. The question is, when calling 911, what information should I be ready to provide? And I think it's also important to note, Alma, if you could speak about, general calmness and being able to speak clearly and provide dispatchers with as much information, right, as possible to really get the needed resources to the scene. So what were some of the other things you had mentioned being ready to speak about?
I think when calling 911, one of the key elements is to know that the 911 dispatchers are highly trained professionals that will ask you a series of questions for a reason. It's a way of triaging. So 911 dispatchers truly are the first responders of first responders. Depending on what's happening, they will triage the situation and give the caller life-saving instructions on how to do CPR, controlling bleeding, Heimlich maneuver, even childbirth. I delivered some babies during the time that I was a dispatcher. So knowing what's happening in that moment, being able to share that in a precise manner, in a calm manner, also always knowing your location. We would, even though we do have even with cell phones now, it'll triangulate and give us a location, but making sure, because if you're traveling and you're not sure where you're at and there's an issue with the ping and we're not getting a clear location, it's important to know where you're at, your address, what are your nearest cross streets, if there's a landmark, if you're near the library, if you're near a school, anything like that, that will guide responders to you. Again, remembering that the more information you can provide, the calmer you can stay, the more that you can provide to that dispatcher, the better it will help that dispatcher assess what is truly needed, what resources need to come. Do we also need a helicopter? Do we need multiple fire trucks? Do you need life-saving instructions? So knowing all of that, making sure that that you can give them specifics. If the door's locked and you can't get to the door, knowing if there's an extra key outside, how to get to that. If there's a combination to a gate, making sure to provide all of that. Staying on the phone with the dispatcher until you're told to go ahead and hang up. To make sure that everybody has the necessary information, or if responders get on scene and they need additional information from the caller, that caller is still on the line and the dispatcher can ask those questions. The dispatcher has the ability to communicate with your responders in the moment. So it's a lifeline between the responders and the patient as well. So being clear, being calm, giving relevant information to that call and knowing your location are going to be the key things when you call 911.
Thank you, Alma. And I think one thing you mentioned earlier too, which is good to note, is any sort of medications the person may be on. I hadn't actually really thought of that. And that's a really important thing to let first responders know as they come to provide service of potentially what medications could interact with something they may decide to give, right?
It's critical. And if you have it in a list, it's going to serve multiple purposes. One, 911, you hand it to the dispatchers, they have it all and they can go. And two, if you're in a disaster situation and you have to evacuate, when you get to the evacuation center, if you need medications, if you have that all written down, it's just going to facilitate you being able to receive those medications much more quickly than if you show up and you have no idea what your dosage is, what the medication's called, all of those things.
Yeah, really great reminders. Oh, Supervisor Gorin.
Well, Alma, all great information. And I want to emphasize how important it is to plan ahead, as we've mentioned before, because we are not thinking in our right brain, the front brain, when we are faced with an emergency. So do what you can. And the cell phones, especially the photo ability on the cell phones, are invaluable. Take a photo of the prescriptions that you are taking, not only for yourself, your children, your parents, and your pets. And remember to evacuate with those medications, because you may not be able to fill those prescriptions for a while. So think ahead, take photos, store those photos up in the cloud so that you have them available. Curly, next question.
Yeah, great point, Supervisor Gorin. All tough lessons learned, I think, that we bring here. Yeah. I wanted to bring Sergeant Valencia back. Alma, you touched on this a little, but I wanted him to just expand. There may be kind of a sense or a myth that cell phones act as a perhaps microchip like we have in our dogs, that law enforcement or first responders can find us, and almost spoke a little bit to the importance of knowing where you are when you call 911. But Sergeant Valencia, what if you just don't know and you're calling from a cell phone? I mean, how specific or how likely is it first responders will be able to find you?
So we have computer software that we're able to input that lat long. So for example, anytime you're on your cell phone and you're actually either sending a text or making a phone call, your cell phone is pinging off cell phone towers. So your cell phone's going to ping off the tower where it has the strongest current and it's the easiest for it to connect. So what happens is it basically triangulates where you're at, and then we're able to get an area of your location based on where your cell phone is pinging off the towers. We use it obviously in law enforcement. We've used it to solve homicides. We've used it to find people that are suicidal. So it's pretty accurate, and it's been proven in court. But it's one tool that we do use that's successful. We can't just go and get cell phone information. We have to have an exigency. So there has to be some sort of life at danger. For example, if it's a person that we're looking for that committed a murder or a homicide, there's public safety there. So therefore we could get what we call an emergency ping. We could call the cell phone provider. We get all the information that we're able to kind of get an idea of where they're at. So it's only used for emergencies. It's not used just to track people. There's too much information. It's very time consuming.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And while I have you, I actually got a good question from one of our longtime listeners, first time callers, that asked, when seeing someone walking on the side of, say, the Highway 101 or other non-pedestrian friendly highway, is the call to 911 or maybe CHP non-emergency? And I would also add to that, potential maybe swervers, drunk drivers. Where do those calls go?
So if you're following a person, for example, let's start with the pedestrian in the roadway. We unfortunately, we do have a lot of those. They seem to want to take a shortcut, or somebody that's experiencing being houseless or living right off a freeway on ramp or off ramp. Those are the 565-2121 numbers. You could call our dispatch center, or you could call CHP. If it's something that has to do with the highway, that's CHP's, but we could transfer the call, or dispatch can transfer the call to CHP. But if it's somebody that's out in the roadway that's jumping in and out of traffic, that is a 911 call. That is somebody that's in some sort of distress, might need some sort of crisis that needs immediate attention or assistance. That's something we want to get alerted to right away. Somebody swerving on the freeway, we do get a lot of those calls. So for example, if it's once or twice, it's kind of common. Somebody reaching for a cell phone, texting. If they're going in and out of lanes, for example, the number 1 lane, it's usually the fast lane. The number 2 lane's the middle lane. The number 3 lane is the slow lane. So if they're swerving from the fast lane to the middle lane and back and forth, and you could tell, like, hey, this person, we all know what swerving is. I mean, you're gonna drift a little bit in the lane of travel, but if they're constantly going back and overcorrecting and the car's jerking, that is a 911 call, because that is going to be an accident. Are they going to be are they going to be, possibly intoxicated? We don't know until we stop them. Can it be somebody falling asleep? Absolutely. So that is a 911 call, and we want those calls to come in.
Great. I think that's helpful information for folks who maybe sometimes hesitate to call 911, but in the scenario you described, I mean, could potentially save a life.
Absolutely. And it's one of those, we've all seen it. I almost got hit head on by a drunk driver on the freeway when I was going to a call when I had a patrol dog. And it's pretty scary seeing headlights coming at you at, he was going a little fast, probably 80 miles an hour, where I had to go off the road. You know, so it happens very quick. I always tell people to scan ahead, look ahead, because some of those you could avoid. Especially a drunk driver, if you see them coming on the opposite side of the road, you know, against traffic, you have to be alert.
Sure.
Sergeant Valencia, I've had the experience, too many of us have had the experience of cars passing us over a double line or on the right side of us going like 80 miles an hour. And I say, I need law enforcement here. Should I be calling you?
You could call the non-emergency number, the 565-2121 or CHP. If it's an emergency where this person is going to cause an accident or either hurt themselves or hurt somebody else, then I would call 911. I'd rather be safe than sorry that, you know, either you didn't remember the number. If there's any doubt, just call 911, and that's something we could deal with. And we want people to call. We don't want people to hesitate. Hey, am I calling the right number? Just call. And if it's the wrong number, then we'll deal with it afterwards. Nobody's going to get disciplined or talked to for calling 911 when it's a non-emergency.
And don't endanger yourself trying to track down the license plate number, just a general description.
Yeah, yes, very general description, yep, and the direction and maybe how fast you think they were going and why they were in danger.
Great, thank you. Carly?
Great. I did want to bring up one additional resource while Sergeant Valencia was talking about a lot of the non-emergency lines that, you know, we do have a number of official sources of information page up on our SoCo emergency that are good to remember. Are you able to see my screen there, Supervisor Gorin?
I am, thank you. Tiny little printing, but I can see your screen.
Okay, well, this is on our SoCo emergency website, our official sources of information. So if, you know, folks happen to live in Cloverdale and are looking for the non-emergency police line, we have that information here. You know, throughout City of Santa Rosa, City of Sonoma, if you have non-emergency. So a lot of the topics that were discussed today, these are, you know, our regional resources for more information. And, you know, it's really important to get official sources, right, Supervisor Gorin? We have a lot of unofficial sources out there who might not be sharing what's correct or what officials want to get out. And so really relying on our first responders, our emergency management, our city partners to help get accurate information out is really critical.
Thanks, Carly, for sharing that. A number of those situations come into the supervisor's office, and then we have to go on there to get the information and report it or get the information back. This is just a more direct way of reporting all of those circumstances. So thank you for sharing that. Again, put them in your cell phone when it's not an emergency.
Yeah, good tip. I'm going to ask one more question of Yesenia, and then I think we're almost at our 4:30 mark here. But I think this is an important one. Yesenia, the question is 211 confidential? What sort of information do callers need to share as they're calling into 211? Will they be reported to you know, immigration or other government agencies if perhaps, you know, they're not US citizens? Could you just talk a little bit about that and what 211 requires of callers?
Definitely. So 211 is confidential. We never ask anyone for their immigration status or social security numbers. The only time that might happen, well, I'll say it this way. If an individual is, for example, looking for a program and we're trying to connect them and we start telling them about eligibility requirements, and we say, you know, so this program does require you to have a social security number. Do you have one of those? It's a simple saying yes or no. They say they don't. Then we're going to continue to look for other resources that they would be eligible for. Other than that, we do not need to know that sort of information, and we would never make note of that information either. Obviously, if someone calls in and is talking about a child being in danger or an elder, a senior being in danger. Those are sorts of things that we do have to report. We are mandated reporters, and so that will be reported. Aside of that, though, typical questions that we ask each caller, we do have a set of demographics that we do have to ask. That's going to be, like their zip code, their gender, if they're employed or not employed. And these are just kind of basic information to get a better sense of the sorts of resources that they may need. This information also helps us to inform our community of the sorts of people that are in need in our community. This can later result in new programs being created for those specific demographics that need the help the most. So yes, there are some demographic questions that some people don't want to answer. And if they don't, it's as easy as saying, I decline, and we'll skip through that and we'll go straight to looking for resources for them. But everything is confidential. You don't ask for your name or address or anything like that, except for what we need so that we can make sure that you're getting the resources that best meet your needs.
That's great, Yesenia. And I know I said that was our last question, but I wanted you to speak quickly. I don't think you had mentioned this, but texting 211 is also an option for folks if they don't want to call in. Could you just talk a little bit about how somebody might be able to text instead of call and what resources they may be able to get that way?
Yeah, so you would text it. So I know it gets a little confusing, but you would go to your texting, to your texting app, and you would text your zip code. So for example, 95407. And then in the phone number line, you would put 898-211. You would send that in, and that'll automatically put you on the queue to reach a live person at 211, a live call specialist. So it would be essentially the same as calling in. You would still be talking to a live person or texting a live person in Spanish or in English. And we would just text you, you would say, hey, I'm looking for food resources. And we would text you the lists of food banks, as well as asking you additional questions on, what hours are you available, or would you need a food bank to be open? So it would still be a conversation that you would be having with someone. There is no preference. You can call or text in. You'll still receive the same support.
Great. Thank you so much for all the good information. With that, Supervisor Gordon, I'm going to turn it back to you for the wrap up.
And thank you. So we're going to end our webinar on that note. Thank you so much for being with us this hour. And I really want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. Sergeant Juan Valencia from the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department, Yesenia Gaitan, thank you for all of the information you provided. Our 211 coordinator from United Way, especially Alma Bowen. I've worked with you, I've known you for a number of years, Executive Director of Nuestra Comunidad, and an entire team. Oh, I want to really thank our interpreters, ALS interpreters, Dallas Downey, and Rebecca, I believe I'm looking for your name here, Jennifer Jacobs, thank you so much. And our Spanish language interpreter, Julie Burns, always a great resource for us. And the entire team of communication specialists who planned and facilitated this afternoon, especially Gilbert and Carly Cabrera. We appreciate everything that you continue to do, the services that you provide for our community. With that, please be safe, especially this holiday season, and go out and enjoy the rest of our beautiful afternoon sun and enjoy the wet weather maybe this weekend. Drive safely. So thank you all and have a good night.